Hey everybody, welcome to
our Halloween show. Like a flashlight.
I want to suck your blood.
Now we're just being weird.
So we picked a variety of films that we wanted to recommend for you to watch on Halloween night.
Yes.
Yes. And the first one is...
Okay, so you're probably not going to be able to hear any of this because the wind sucks.
The wind blows. I hate to correct you.
There's only one of my movies that I picked that will actually cause you to check your house for weak points and possible monsters ingressing, and that movie is The Ring. The Ring is about investigative journalist Rachel Keller. Rachel Keller's niece and several of her niece's friends have died under mysterious circumstances, apparently from watching a video. So, being an investigative journalist, she watches the video and weird things start to happen, beginning with a phone call that says, "You will die." No. Damn it! We're going so well!
The Ring.
Beginning with a phone call that says 7 days, which is the length of time she has left to live. So Rachel Keller launches into an investigation to discover the source of the tape, who is the little girl in the tape, and partway into her investigation, her son watches the tape. So she makes a bunch of choices that she otherwise might not make. I really like The Ring, and if you want a creepy movie with an amazing soundtrack that just adds to the creep, The Ring is the way to go. I'm specifically choosing the American version of the movie, not the Japanese, because the cultural differences, I like the American Ring.
America. Fuck yeah. That's a different movie.
That's a completely different movie. Team America, world police.
You know, the one thing I liked about The Ring, and to me, just horror in general, what's really great about horror is when it takes you from a safe place and makes that terrifying all of a sudden. And I think we have a tendency to feel safer when we're around our technology, particularly our entertainment technology, like televisions or computer screens. The idea that your television is not something that you find comfort from, but will actually bring you the threat of death.
Or your laptop, or your game system, or...
And your telephone as well. I did find The Ring to be a pretty creepy movie too, so I agree with Cheryl on that.
I mostly found The Ring creepy when I was trying to sleep and my husband was watching it and you could hear the sounds from the soundtrack in the background. It's not okay.
So, my number one pick for Halloween was Prince of Darkness by John Carpenter.
I don't actually understand this choice personally, but...
So my first pick is Prince of Darkness, which is by the auteur-director John Carpenter. You may know him from The Thing or Escape from New York. This movie is about a group of scientists who go to an abandoned church, find a bunch of physical anomalies, and then through communication with the Catholic Church, they find out there's something a little bit scarier going on that goes back centuries. What I like about the film is that it basically says science can't help you and religion can't either. You know, it just makes it very frightening that the things that we traditionally go to for comfort aren't necessarily going to save us from doom.
It has Alice Cooper.
Which is the worst part of the film.
I disagree. I think it was the best and only worthwhile part of the film. But it's also part of John Carpenter's trilogy of apocalypse movies that also includes The Thing and In the Mouth of Madness.
Which I think are all inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. So if you like H.P. Lovecraft, you might like those films. I haven't seen In the Mouth of Madness, but that's actually the title of an H.P. Lovecraft story, I think.
In the Mountains of Madness. Another movie that I really like is The Fly. Not the remake, but the original Fly. Because the remake had a lot of gore, but the original Fly was surprisingly poignant. It's about a man losing himself and losing his family and losing control, and he's afraid for himself, his future, his wife, and his son. And it's just an amazingly wonderful movie, yet horrible because of how touching it is.
I have not seen that film all the way through, but I remember seeing the end of it and finding it to be really unsettling.
The end is kind of the quintessential scene from the movie, but the whole movie through, it's very poignant because it's a guy losing himself.
I'm just going to throw in a fun one here, but there was this movie back in the 80s that I saw called Night of the Comet, and it's about these two valley girls who survive the end of the world that happens when this comet goes overhead. And they basically just have to survive zombies and whatnot that are going on in the world. But it's a really bad film. It's kind of campy, but it's fun. It's a fun B movie. So if you want to go see a B movie, horror movie, that's just kind of fun, I think that's the one to do.
I've seen that movie.
Have you seen that movie?
I have
What did you
seen
think
that
of
movie.
it?
I really liked it in the 80s. I haven't really seen it since then, though. But it was an entertaining movie.
We were both youngsters at the time.
Yeah, comic goes over and everybody turns into piles of clothing. Except for the people who don't.
Yeah, and they're like zombies and stuff. I remember it because they had these cute girls that were starring in it, and I had just hit puberty. I think that actually had something to do with it, but hey, that's horror movies for you. Thanks.
It wasn't a Haley's Comet that went over for months. It was like, poof, gone. More like a meteor. So, I mean, really, the whole title of the movie is a little misleading.
So anyway, it's a bad movie, but it's kind of fun.
You might want to watch it.
You might not.
Another movie that is not well known, but that is an excellent movie, and one for people who like subtitles, is The Host. The Host is a Korean movie that has a lot to do with family. All of the main characters in The Host are family, and a neat thing about The Host is both the source of the problem and the solution to the problem are the Americans. It is a monster movie that is just really well done and a lot of fun. So have you seen The Host?
I have seen The Host. And I thought it was a good film. It's not one of my favorites by any means, but there are a lot of great Korean movies that I was watching at the time. I would say Old Boy would be a much better choice.
It's just an extreme revenge film.
So I'm going to throw in a fun movie. It's kind of a B movie, but it's done with a big budget. And this was a movie called Van Helsing that starred Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing, the vampire hunter. And he's chasing down Dracula, and he runs into Frankenstein and the werewolf. They're involved in this whole scheme that Dracula's putting together. And it's not a scary movie. It's basically a B movie with a big budget, and, Van Helsing's more like a secret agent in a lot of ways. It's just a really fun time. It's a campy movie. It doesn't really take itself too seriously. But I thought it was just a fun movie all the way through. Just a fun B movie made with a big budget and thoroughly entertaining. Thoroughly entertaining.
I saw Van Helsing. I don't remember it really well. It was kind of ridiculous. I mean, it was over the top in a lot of ways from what I do remember. And I don't remember it being a great movie, but it could still be a fun thing to see for Halloween.
So,
remember it.
So at the very worst, it's a hit or miss film.
Which is better than Prince of Darkness. Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods is more of a fun horror movie. A thing that makes Cabin in the Woods different than a lot of movies that fit into its category, where a bunch of people go to the woods and attract an evil force, is that you actually like the characters. You care about them and you don't want things to happen to them. And but you also, this is weird, like the source of the chaos that's happening. So you are rooting for all sides in this movie. And it's a unique movie that is horrifying and gory and fun, and it'll get you in a lot of different directions. What did you think of Cabin in the Woods?
Well, I liked it. I saw it while I was in Sarasota, Florida, watching probably the most depressing film festival that I've ever been to. And I just needed a break from all that stuff. And so, seeing a nice big Hollywood horror film sounded like a good idea. I really enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was, I think it's kind of neat because it takes a meta perspective on horror, and it tries to explain, what goes on in a lot of different types of horror movies and bring them all together. And I thought from a intellectual standpoint, it was a fascinating film. Was I scared by it? Not too much. But I thought it was a fun film. It's definitely worth checking out. Most of my friends really, really love it. So I'm a big fan of Roman Polanski. He's an amazing director, and he directed the wonderful Rosemary's Baby. And it's a creepy little film. Mia Farrow plays a woman who gets pregnant, and as the pregnancy goes forward, she starts to think something's wrong. She thinks that maybe there's some devil inside of her, or a demon or whatever, and she doesn't trust her husband anymore, and she doesn't trust the food that she's being served. And what I like about the movie is that it takes kind of a fear of bodily changes that you get when pregnancy comes around anyway, and enhances them into a horror movie. And I think it's a really fascinating film. Also, just on a technical side, I just think Roman Polanski just knows how to throw together a film, and I really appreciate the sound editing in particular on that film. It's just really cool.
It was an excellent film. I like the fact that you don't know what's going on with the character. You don't know if everything's in her head, and if she just has a super controlling husband. But as she tries to escape from the factors of her husband and everything else going around, it becomes more evident that what's going on is maybe not in her head, unless it is. Okay, a lot of American horror movies take place in the middle of nowhere, where creepy things can come and get you. But one of my favorite horror movies is a movie called Attack the Block, which is honestly more of a monster movie. But a bunch of kids in the projects, and they're all real kids. They're not like American kids who are actually played by 28-year-olds. They're real kids in the projects, and they are attacked by this force that they do not understand. And it takes place in London, and it's just a great movie. It's a lot of fun. And aliens with big glowing teeth. Ah! I like Attack the Block because it's different, like a lot of the movies I've chosen.
Attack the Block, first off, it looked really cool. The monsters were, I mean, this was a low-budget film, and they managed to come up with a very simple costume that was very effective for the alien monsters. And it's a charming film. David Cronenberg, another horror auteur. My pick of his movies is Videodrome. James Woods plays as kind of a sleazy producer who ends up starting to program a very edgy kind of program, and all of a sudden the world starts going all weird and strange and starts hallucinating, or maybe they're not hallucinations. Anyway, it's a creepy, creepy film. It's kind of a gross film at times too, but it's also a brain buster. It's something that's going to make you think. It'll get you kind of questioning what's real and what's not. So there's a real philosophical element to the movie as well. So I recommend that one. What do you think, Cheryl?
I think it was horrifying and gross. If you liked the movie Naked Lunch, you might like Video. If you liked the movie Naked Lunch, you might like Videodrome.
Both directed by David Cronenberg.
Another movie for the subtitle crowd is, I don't know, it might be Norwegian, I have no idea. That's a problem. Rare Exports is a Finnish horror film that is also about Christmas. It takes place in a small Finnish town where there's a mining operation where they unearth something extremely unusual and terrifying. Rare Exports is about the other version of Santa Claus, not the happy jolly fellow, but the guy who keeps you in line by scaring the absolute hell out of you. It is a very unusual movie. It is once again in subtitles, but it is a good movie to watch to wrap up both Halloween and look forward to Christmas in a scary, scary way. You don't know anything about this movie.
Well, I have bought exports, but not very rare ones. So no, I don't.
No, it's a Finnish movie. It's an unusual movie that entwines both Christmas and Halloween in a clever way, where we're going to make everything work out to our advantage. And that's one of the things I liked about the movie, is they somehow twist things around and give it a really intriguing ending.
Is it a musical?
No musical.
Oh.
Why would it be a musical?
Because it's Halloween and Christmas. And you mix them together, you get a musical. A Thanksgiving musical. So a recent movie that came out that I thought was really, really fun was called This Is the End. Seth Rogen gets together with James Franco and a whole bunch of his friends. And the idea is they're playing themselves in this movie. And the idea is James Franco's throwing this big party, and then all of a sudden, the world starts to end. What do you know? And so this group of friends ends up huddled in James Franco's house while the world is ending outside, and they're all trying to figure out how they're going to get along. You know, do they venture out and try to get food? What do they try to do? It's really, really funny movie. But it's got some really horrific parts to it too. It's got a lot of frightening images in it. So anyway, I really enjoyed that. I think if you want kind of a little bit of comedy and a little bit of horror, that's a good one to go with. Oh, and also of course your celebrity fix. There you go.
I know nothing about this movie.
How is it you know nothing about the film?
I have not seen it.
Have you ever seen any Seth Rogen films?
I've seen movies with Seth Rogen in them.
But not ones that he wrote.
And I don't know.
But if you like Seth Rogen and James Franco and Jay Baruchel and who's the little round guy? What's his name? Seth. He was in The Wolf of Wall Street.
His name is Bob.
Yeah, whatever. Moving on.
My last movie is a movie you have all heard of. It is the dreaded Human Centipede. I really enjoyed this movie. I actually ended up watching this movie because a friend and I were watching something on TV and someone vomited on screen and I was complaining about why is this necessary? Why do we have to watch this? And he mentioned the Human Centipede. A lot of horror movies have relied on gore and showing you all of the violence and all of the grossness and torture porn and all of that. And the Human Centipede doesn't have any of that. It has like a minute of gore. All of the rest of it is implied. The horror is all in your mind, is what you're being told is happening. And I really appreciated that. I had to take a break halfway through the movie to like walk the dog and get away from it. One of the good things about the Human Centipede, because it is hard to watch in the beginning because of really questionable acting by the two main girls, is the front part is a Japanese guy. So very quickly, you no longer have to listen to them talk. It's the happiest I've ever been to not have to listen to someone talk like ever. And I don't know if I'm making sense. And I recommend the Human Centipede. Not the Human Centipede 2 though. No. Horrifying. Have you ever had any desire to see the Human Centipede?
Well, I do now. No, actually, just because it was getting a lot of buzz and people were saying it was really, really bad and disgusting, there was part of me that was kind of curious, but I heard it wasn't a very good film, so I was hesitant to see it. But Cheryl likes it, so I'm actually kind of curious about it now. Would you say if you were a fan of the video game Centipede, you would like that movie?
I would say that they're completely unrelated, and I feel very good about that.
Huh. So my foreign film horror pick is a movie called Let the Right One In. There was an American remake of it called Let Me In, which is very, very good. But I actually prefer the Swedish version of the film, the original. And it's a great film about a kid who befriends a young vampire. Well, I don't know how young the vampire really is, but she's in the body of a little girl. And they develop this relationship, and it's just it's an intense psychological movie, but it's kind of a sweet film too. It's a really sweet film too, and I think the ending, though gruesome, is very touching. So I don't know, I recommend that movie quite a bit for your horror pick, your Halloween pick. Did you see that, Cheryl?
I did. I've seen both the American and the other version.
And which one did you like better?
I like both of them. And I read the book. I didn't notice a whole lot of difference between the two. One was in English and one was not.
But you liked the film?
I did. My final movie is a movie full of wind. A movie that you will not be able to understand because of the vast breeziness. Damn you, wind!
My classic pick for Halloween is a movie called Night of the Hunter. It stars Robert Mitchum as a criminal who's impersonating a preacher and trying to warm up to the widow of his ex-partner who had stolen money from him after a heist. And he finds out that the kids know where it is, so he starts hunting the kids, and the kids, lead him on this chase. And it is a brilliantly dark and creepy film. And it's directed by the Hollywood legend Charles Laughton, who you may not have heard of because he was really popular before the 50s. But it's a great film. It's worth checking out.
I can't be convinced that that's good.
Why? What do you mean? Have you even seen a preview of it?
I'm being biased and prejudgmental. I can't believe this is good.
Oh, so you're basically saying that you don't like the picks that I've had, so you think this one must be bad?
I'm saying I question your taste.
Oh, okay, well, I'll let you know that a lot of people think Night of the Hunter is a classic movie. Charles Laughton directed it, the only film directed by Charles Laughton. He was once considered the greatest actor of all time.
But who is he? And I would know him from such films as?
Captain Bligh.
Films as what? Films that I've heard of.
Well, he's from movies that are before the 50s. I mean, the 50s or earlier. He may have... I'm actually not sure. I have not seen a lot of Charles Laughton films.
How many movies have you seen with him in it?
I don't know that I've seen any.
We don't know who he is.
And I just can't think of the films off the top of my head.
You may know Chris Laughton from such movies as Mutiny on the Bounty.
Charles Laughton. You may know Charles Laughton. Okay.
You didn't know who he was. You may know Charles Laughton from such movies as Mutiny on the Bounty. Mutiny on the Bounty.
See, I may not have known who he was, but at least I could say his name.
Yeah, but can you say Mutiny on the Bounty?
Mutiny on the Bounty.
Alright, you may know Charles Laughton from such movies as Mutiny on the Bounty, Spartacus.
Yeah, Spartacus.
And The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know. Now, I would also like you to tell me, what is a director auteur?
An auteur director is basically...
He doesn't know that either.
No, it just means that it's a director as an artist. If you call somebody an auteur film director, that basically means that they are kind of a self-contained artist. They are responsible, and they strive to be responsible for the quality of the film. So that's why John Carpenter is someone who was usually involved with every part of his filmmaking. He did not just the directing, but he was involved in the editing, the special effects. He was involved with the music. And so you get a auteur film director, and it's usually somebody who's really involved and responsible for this.